Welcome back to the next episode, brought to you by Positively Black Foundation. My name is Michael.
I'm William.
And today we'll be looking at the N-word.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, but something that we are prepared to look at. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into this. So let's look at the history of the term, okay? Where does this word come from? Now, the Latin word for black was Niger, N-I-G-E-R.
Yeah.
Historically, what happened, as we all know, the transatlantic slave trade took place, where black people were essentially used as commodity slaves. And the N-word became a derogatory term that was used to describe them. I've also done a bit of research and I've looked up an online definition of what the N-word means, and it comes up here as a derogatory word used mainly by black people, okay, as a term of endearment, although its root meaning is ignorance. So I don't know, Will, I mean, what do you think about that definition?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, I mean, you know, it's a derogatory word. It's a racial slur. You know, I've heard certain people, you know, band it about as, you know, as a word that, you know, is being reclaimed.
Yeah, and when they say in term of endearment, how can that be endearing? Do you think that's a term that could ever be found to be endearing?
Well, I've never heard you use it.
No.
No.
Yeah, it's something that I personally, in all honesty, I mean, to address that word in this video, I personally don't feel comfortable saying it. And I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with anyone that feels comfortable saying it around me either. So I struggle to see how anyone could ever use it as a term of endearment, which is...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I, you know, I've heard white people use it before. And when, you know, when it's been used in front of me, I've felt really uncomfortable, you know, with its usage, knowing where its roots come from, and, you know, where it originated. But, you know, I know that Jay-Z did an interview with Letterman. I think it was on Netflix.
Oh, the Letterman show, yes.
Yeah, yeah, and, you know, kind of Letterman asked him to kind of expand upon use of the N-word, and Jay-Z was like, yeah, you know, we're reclaiming that word, we're flipping it, you know, you can't reclaim something that negative. It just doesn't make sense. It's like you know, within the last year or so, there was a group of people, trying to reclaim the swastika. I mean, you know, you can't reclaim something which has been, you know, used in such a negative way for such a long time. I mean, originally the swastika, you know, it started out, you know, its roots lay in Hinduism, and you know, it's like, you know, I believe the swastika it's a cross symbolising reincarnation, because it constantly follows around.
Indeed, yeah.
On itself. You know, it's so. And then it was adopted by the Nazis, you know, and it's a negative thing. You can't reclaim that. You can't, you know, start wearing that on T-shirts and, you know.
Yeah, I understand. So, yeah, your point, I take your point on exactly, and I think we'll touch a bit more on that, especially with popular culture and how it's affected, and the term, and how it's affected society. So, again, essentially, it is a double, I think the use of that word is a double standard of racism within our current time.
Yeah.
As you just touched on, how can it be used as a term of endearment, but also it's a derogatory term? It's a double standard, and it can be addressed from a black person's point of view and also a white person's point of view. And this is what we're going to be doing in this video. So let's now look at social media and TV and how that's been, I suppose, used to normalise, I don't know if that's the best term to use, normalise the term and using the term freely?
I mean, if it was normalised and used freely, I mean, you know, I'd like to see the first white person try and use it freely. I mean, you know. Yeah,
but I think what I was saying there with that is I think it's been used, social media, television and music are trying to normalise the term.
Yeah.
Albeit derogatory and negative, it's been introduced more into the mainstream via hip-hop and music culture.
Yes.
But there was one interesting point, I think. There's a social media, so memes.
Yes.
We all love a good meme.
Yeah.
I love a good meme, a good quote in a meme. But I remember a meme. Do you remember Training Day, Denzel Washington.
Yes, where he's in the car
Yes.
next to his guy.
Yes, and I think he's got a cigar in his mouth or something.
Yeah, or a zoot.
Yeah, or a zoot or something, and he says the word
Yeah.
N-word. That meme has done its rounds, viral.
Yeah.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
and it's actually made the N-word or the term cool, because when you see it on that meme, people send it. It doesn't matter what race or ethnic origin you are or background you are. I've seen people send that to each other, and it's just like, oh yeah, that's cool, that's acceptable. But essentially, what you're doing there is you are reinforcing negative connotations.
Yes, you are.
And this is the whole thing. I think it's been normalised or used as a term of endearment to the detriment of people, and I don't think some people realise that. And now, as you've rightfully touched upon just earlier on, was the Jay-Z and Letterman interview.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to expand that, and I'm going to just blanket the whole rap hip hop scene, music scene. On the way to this video, I had my music on, had my headphones on, listening to some of my favourite. I love hip hop and rap.
I grew up with hip hop.
Yeah.
You know, Notorious B.I.G., bit of Tupac. You know.
I mean, and again, it gives me inspiration. If you're in the gym, it gets you going, it gets you pumped.
Yeah.
But all too often, what I've noticed in the videos as well as the actual lyrical content itself, the N-word could be dropped 50 to 60 times. It could be dropped every lyrical, every line is going to be mentioned.
Yeah.
And what people are failing to see is when it's used like that, it's programming. It's infiltrating our subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And essentially what it's doing there.
It's getting us to accept something that was negative and accept it as an everyday word, which really. And as it's being used within black society, it kind of gives it the word more power, especially for prejudice and racist white people.
Yes.
Because the word has more. It's been weaponized almost.
Yeah, indeed. And again, I'll protect us as UK citizens.
Yeah.
London boys, born and bred.
Yeah.
It's not in our culture.
No.
This is certainly what I believe is an American culture, but American culture affects the whole world. Everybody wants to be American, right? You see in the whole continent of
Growing
Africa.
up, I used to grow up in front of MTV.
Yes.
Everything that all the fashion, everything that was in the music videos, would flow out, onto the British streets.
The whole world is Americanized. The whole world, everything starts off from there, and unfortunately, they are the bearer of bad news at the moment because they're pushing all these things, the negative things, to the forefront, and we're just being impressionable and taking it all on board. So you've got to remember, we've got a whole continent in Africa, for example, who modelled themselves, and the African youth modelled themselves on American culture, how they speak.
Yeah.
You'll find that a lot of students, foreign students or foreign exchange students who come over have an American twang in how they speak.
Yes.
Because that's the culture. Even you're looking at the Asian markets, how they dress themselves, how they act, it's all American-based culture. So, like I say, being London born and bred, I mean, the music that we listen to here, the roots, for example, grime, that comes from hip-hop, but we don't have the use of the N-word in that, fortunately. However, there are also the maybe other terms which are negative, such as the female word for dog, bitch, which is a word, and other words such as hose, which are brought in and used alongside the N-word.
Yes.
Just to it's negative reinforcement, in my opinion. So I will then ask the question: Will, is this a form of social engineering of black people? Because what we're looking at here is everybody learns by imitation. From the age of you're 2-3 years old, small kids watch and they imitate.
Yeah.
Our music, we're just discussing music culture. Is that now teaching us that this word is acceptable if you're hearing the same word, the N word 60 or 70 times in a song, and then we are essentially going out and mimicking or imitating exactly that through the music video and through the lyrics? Are we being socially engineered are black people being socially engineered, or what is your view on that?
Well, to be honest with you, I think that all it does is reinforce negative black stereotypes. You know, when you know, if you see, you know, young brothers and sisters drop in, you know, the N word, all it does is create this image, you know, a derogatory, negative image of a young black person.
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, we really, you know, by creating this video, what we're doing is we're encouraging young people to kind of, you know, sit and think about, you know, any negative, you know, stereotypes that they're supporting, or any negative view of themselves that they're portraying.
Yeah, and again, by this video, what we're saying there is we're creating an identity, a new black identity, a new black paradigm, a new black shift, because like you say, the foundation is Positively Black. Now, identity is taught to groups of people by what they repetitively see and hear. At the moment, the music is what it is. You don't see it really on mainstream television.
No.
I think it was phased out towards the early 20th century. That's when it's really phased out from TV. But again, we have to create. We're here to try and create a new identity, because at the moment the identity that's been pushed out is negative. And again, I believe then that's part of a social engineering of the black people, and to keep, I suppose, a lid on certain things. So I will say again, when you are inundated with negative stereotypes, negative words, this all goes just to create, I suppose, and especially in the black community, I suppose it creates a resent, a self-hate, and a division. I mean, we were watching the YouTube video last night.
Yeah, we were watching
Chris Rock.
That's it. We were watching Chris Rock. And,
Bring the Pain tour.
Yes.
Yep. 96. So great video. Funny, yeah.
Funny, yes.
He's a funny comedian. I don't necessarily agree with everything that Chris Rock stands for, but funny comedian. And in that snippet, he was describing the difference between black people and quote unquote N-word people.
Yes.
Which I found hilarious, but I do believe even with that video, or albeit comedy, it was still creating a division amongst black people. What we want to do is create unity and a positivity moving forward amongst the black community, because to understand that these exterior words and things like that are designed essentially to divide, and that word has come from a negative connotation. You can't detach the energy that word comes from, unfortunately. As much as you want to make it cool and good, and as Jay-Z says, we're reclaiming, you can't do that.
I mean, really, you know, you don't want to. You wouldn't go banding around homophobic slurs. You know, you wouldn't go drop those around. They're not used as terms of endearment.
Well, it's like two gay men calling each other, I don't know, queer is a word, isn't it? Calling each other queers as a term of endearment. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to possibly get someone that's homosexual on the show to ask them how they'd feel about that.
Yeah, or other negative, more negative, weighty slurs.
Mm-hmm.
You just wouldn't ban them around. And so, you know, why would you say you wouldn't ban around homophobic slurs? So you wouldn't ban around racial slurs. You know, I mean, you wouldn't let your kids use the N-word.
No.
I wouldn't. I mean, you know, my kids will be mixed race, so I wouldn't let them use that terminology. You know, it's something which, you know, as far as I'm concerned, is banned.
Yeah.
You know, that word, you know, and really, I think we should a word with that negative history. I think really we should just.
It's irreversible, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we should just ban it from today's society.
Let's retire.
If I did it my way, we should retire.
Let's retire the N-word. Yeah.
Retire it.
I mean, going on from what you're saying, then I think essentially what you're saying is it's about accountability, not only accountability of ourselves, and I think it does start with accountability of ourselves, because we choose what we listen to. I choose to listen to, even though some of these beats, such good beats, such good music. The production, I think it's the production that gets me more than the lyrics. I think with most of rap and hip hop.
I was always back in the day. I was always impressed with Timbaland's production.
Yeah, it's the production that usually gets me. But if we are prepared to listen to that production, which also bears the lyrical content,
yeah,
then we have to be accountable. Don't be surprised if those words start slipping out here and there, because like I say, we've discussed it in the first episode, we are only but computers who are programmable.
Yeah.
So the music that we listen to programs us. It is also up to the artists. You've got your Jay-Z's, you've got your Kendrick Lamar's, you've got people who are seen to be leaders and are seen to be, I suppose, conscious, a part of the conscious community about how we should expand our minds and etc. But they openly use these words in their music. So it's up to them to be accountable, but also it's also up to the record labels to be accountable. Because at the moment it appears to be, without being, it's getting into too many conspiracy theories, it appears to be a ploy, because how can we get rid of this word when it's openly being used over and over and over again?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, also, not just in music, but I mean, it's used in film. I remember, Django Unchained with Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
That was a Quentin Tarantino flick.
Yes.
I remember.
Yes.
And the N word was dropped so much, and there was a little bit of an uproar about how much that word was dropped.
I can appreciate where they're coming from at the time it was meant to represent, but still, like you say, you have to understand that they have the accountability. The directors, the producers, Hollywood have an accountability because what we see is what we do.
Yeah,
monkey see, monkey do. If you want to call it that.
There's a famous saying. You are what you eat. If you eat crap, you will feel like crap.
Yeah.
So really, we also need to be responsible with what the type of the type of media we're consuming, and what we're letting our children consume as well. We need to take take some responsibility as well.
So it starts with us first, but then
hopefully spread that on to the rest of society.
Yeah.
To be responsible in what they're putting out there.
Indeed, but again, we can't get away from advertising and media, because it is what it is. But like you say, I do agree with you that a big part of it starts at home. I mean, the final word really on this that I have to say is how we can try to move forward after we've retired the N-word.
Yeah.
How can we move forward to create new labels which are terms that black people can use as terms of endearment to respect each other or to acknowledge each other, and not to use that word, because as much as how much you want to dress it up, I just do not see how that can ever be adopted as something that all mainstreamers or all main people will do. I've got a quick example actually, going back, the artists. I think recently there was a Kendrick Lamar concert in America. He called up a young white lady
to sing the lines,
to sing the lyrics.
Yeah.
Now, it got to the point where the N-word, it's Kendrick of course, so the N-word was going to get dropped. It got to the point where he dropped the N-word, she dropped the N-word, he stopped their song.
Yeah, and then pulled her up on it.
Pulled her up. I mean, how could he do that?
What was he expecting?
What was he expecting? You've written a song which contains that word so many times. You expect now that every person who admires you for your art, for your work, that sings on to all your lyrics, is going to stop and think, oh, let me just stop with that word because it's wrong. They're not going to do that. It's because you've programmed them to do that. That's what you put out. That's your material. I'm not going to expect, if I do something and my kids see me do something and they do the same thing, I can't pull them up because they see me doing it. It's as simple as that. So this is where we are in society. Perhaps Kendrick Lamar should use another term which is more positive, or create a new term which is positive, or other artists should create, because they're in positions of power and they're in positions of responsibility.
And they're role models.
They're role models.
And we would encourage people, to be positive role models. So again, it's hopefully that's something that's a negative term that can just be retired.
Yeah, and again, I said moving forward, it's about creating a new way to live, a new paradigm. So finding new ways of identifying with each other, not only within the black community, but also within the wider community, and being able to use terms which don't hold any negativity in them. So again, this video essentially is saying that the N-word does exist. It's saying that the N-word is negative in its entirety. I do not believe in any way that it can ever be used as a form of endearment or positively. And it should be retired in a big way. And we should, as a community, try to move forward and find ways of identifying or labelling without the need to resort to such a word.
That's it. That's, you know, I'm in full support of that.
Awesome. So again, this is another episode brought to you by Positive Black Foundation. Hopefully you found the value in the content. Stay tuned. We'll be producing
The next
further
episode,
videos.
yeah.
Yeah, the next episode. We're going to keep you guessing as to what that is. We've got our titles in mind already, but
Yeah.
for now, until next time, stay black. We'll stay